Hello everyone, I am Doc. Today we would be discussing about how to create annotation in Java. So let's get started. So basically I have a problem today which I want to solve using the annotation, and the problem which I am having currently is that I want things to get logged. For example, if there is what I want is that I want if I declare any method with particular annotation X, then that method should get the content of that method should get logged. And in content I could have various other things, various things which I want to get logged, but the main crux of the problem is that if I declare annotation over the method, or if I declare annotation over a class, then all the method within that class should get logged. This is the problem which I am planning to solve using the annotation. Okay, so let's get started. So here there are various uses of annotation basically is used to tell the nature of the class, nature of the element. What is the nature of the element? It could be at the rate entity, it could be at the rate service, at the rate component, and so on. It could be used to give some constraints at the rate not null, at the rate deprecated, and so on. It can be used to tell how this thing should be processed, like we are going to do it right now. If we are giving the if we will be giving at the rate annotation over anything, over any method, then the processing of that method should change a bit, and it should include itself in the logging of the in our logging. Okay, so and it also describes the behavior of the element. For example, at the rate transaction, these are few uses of that annotation, and I don't expect you to know all of them. I know these would be confusing, but we should directly dive into the code. Don't worry. Okay, so the first problem before me is to create the such annotation which will help me in my logging of the methods. Okay, so I want to create an annotation like log transaction, and the annotation can be created by giving the type at the rate interface. Great. Now it seems annotation is ready. No, not yet. There are few others annotation over the annotation. For example, I'm defining my annotation, and over my annotation definition, I have three others annotation which is actually changing the behavior, or which will actually not changing, it will actually describe the behavior of my future annotation. For the annotation here is log transaction. Okay, so the first annotation which I have put is at the rate documented. Basically, at the rate documented tells me that do I want this annotation to be documented in Java doc. I said yes, so I put the annotation at the rate documented. The second thing which comes, sorry, the second thing which comes is do I want this annotation on the class level, or I want it on the method level, or I want it on the field level. Actually, I want this annotation to be described over the class, because if it's described over the class, I want all the methods within the class to register themselves for the logging. If I put this annotation over the method, I want only that method to get itself registered for the logging. So I give the so I say says that my target would be both method and class level. The third thing which appears here is a retention. Actually, I want this annotation to exist in the runtime. Means the code gets compiled, the code is turned into the .class format, and so on and so forth. It goes through various transformation, and I want my this annotation to be retained till the runtime. If I check for this annotation at the runtime, it should be present. Okay, apart from these three, there is a few more annotations available, like at the rate inheritance, where inherited actually tells us that can this annotation be inherited or not, and so on. But for our use case, we only need these three annotations. So actually I have described the same in here, in the Java code, and I have created the annotation here. As you can see, it's the same, exactly same code which we discussed in the presentation. Okay, the next question comes up. Now what should we do? I have described the annotation, and how shall I be able to change the behavior at runtime of a particular method on which this annotation has been posted. Let's check it out. So there are two ways. The one is reflection. We won't be using reflection in this case. The other is actually aspect oriented programming. But regarding the reflection, in the case of reflection, basically we have a class field, we have a class, we have a class method, and there are various other classes in reflection which is available. In the class field we have a get annotation, and we tell the type of annotation we want. If that particular field is decorated with this annotation, it will return the object of this annotation, else it will return null. So we can write a method at runtime which will check if every field of a particular class that has been annotated or not. If it has been annotated with that particular annotation which we want, then we can do any business over that. Any business logic can be written over that, and any transformation can be done over that. So that would not be a great deal, but here in this particular case we are going to use aspect oriented programming. In aspect oriented programming, we would be defining a simple method. The method would be profile all method with two parameters or arguments. The one would be our annotation which we described. The other is the proceeding joint point. In the concept of basically the concept of aspect oriented programming is that if I am calling a particular method m1, and I says that I describe a particular point cut. I would say PC a point cut over this method. If it's a point cut, then basically my request is being routed to another method, for example x. The x method get executed and it's get routed back. This type of point cut is basically, or advice is basically known as at the rate before. Similarly, we have advice at the rate after and at the rate around. So I have used at the rate around advice here. At the rate around says that before the execution of the method and after the execution of method, this x should be called. If the request comes for method m1, then x should be called before the execution of m1 and after the execution of m1. That's a simple concept of AOP and at the rate around advice. Okay, let's move forward. And we says that we have decided to use at the rate around advice in the from the concepts of AOP, and now we would be telling we would be using some conditions. One of our condition is saying that it should be annotated with our type of annotation over the method. This says they should be annotated over the method. The other says it, or it could be annotated over the class. Anyone would work for us. So in this case, anyone would work for us. The other condition which we included may not be necessary is that we says that that particular class should belong to particular package. This is a condition which we included, and we can ignore it for a moment. And we says that here we check the annotation, our described annotation. If the particular method or particular class has been annotated with with our defined type of annotation, then this method would be called, and there would be some code which would be written here which will get executed. Let's see what code we have written. Okay, here we have at the rate transaction logging, and we have written not as a small amount of code here for the for logging these methods. So whenever this method gets executed, first we find out the method signature from the preceding join point. Then we find out the class name. Then we find out the method name. Then we find out what are the parameters from the method signature. Then we find out the arguments from preceding join points, with which argument over the method m1 did the request entered, and it has been routed over to x, and we can find out the arguments with which basically the request entered m1, and this could be logged in here. So basically we are finding out what are the arguments which have been used in calling the method m1, what are the various parameters, and what is the class name, method name. We have started the stopwatch, and if we have logged in the information that execution start for this particular class and this particular method with these particular arguments. And if we will see with these particular arguments, and basically we have converted these arguments into the string, we have stringified these arguments. Okay, so next what we have done, we have after logging this information, we have actually called the execution of method m1. So if I would tell you how the whole chronology goes, is that uh, there is a call to method m1, but because we have defined a point cut here, so before execution of the method, a new method, that is profile all method, gets called. Let's say x. When x gets called, it basically logs the execution, logs the arguments with which the method m1 is being called. After logging the argument, it says that I am giving a call back to giving the control back to method m1. So this is part 1, this is part 2, and giving back of the control is part 3. After this execution of method m1 completes, it brings control back to the caller method. This is a part 4. The time taken by the method m1 get logged, and then it returns. This is part 5. This is actually whole flow is going on. Let's see this in the code. So the first logging happens here. Here the method m1 is called back. Here when the method m1 completes its execution, this logging happens and the result is being returned to the caller of the method m1. So what I have this is the basic aspect oriented programming which I am using here to log the transaction. So let's see our testing service. I have created a service here. There are two methods, method 1 and method 2, and actually let me put this uh, I would say log transaction over the class, and but after putting it over the class, I'm expecting that on the call of method 1 and the call of the method 2, both methods would get logged into both methods would get logged and would register themselves for the logging purpose. So if I rerun this application, okay, and here I have basically declared at the rate test annotation simple get API, which will call method m1 and method m2. Let me show you. It will call method m2 and call method m1, and as I have declared at the rate log annotation over the class, so I'm expecting both of the method to register themselves for the logging purpose. Let's see it in action. Okay, I have reloaded it. So it says here the transaction logging starts. This is my logging. It says the execution of test service method 2 with input parameters p3 Arjun happens. This is the method m2. Similarly, the method 1 also registers itself for the logging with parameters Nasir and Tom. Okay, let's change it a little bit and says that I want to declare it over the method m1 only, method 1 only, and let's rerun this application. And now I'm expecting the method 2 should not register itself for the logging purpose. Let's check it out. Okay, service has been started. I'm going to refresh it. Okay, yeah, only method m1 registered itself for the logging purpose. There is no method m2. It says that the method m1 have been called with Nasir and Tom, and it took only 22 milliseconds for the reply to come. So if I give any, for example, I give Jim, it's get logged with Nasir and Jim, and same 5 millisecond. Great response time. Okay, so this is how the annotation works with aspect oriented programming. I hope you will have liked this video, and if there is any question, do comment. And if you like this video, please hit a like button and subscribe my channel for more such videos. Thanks a lot.